What if the thing you chase all your life, marriage, love, security, is the very chain that breaks your spirit? Diogenes once asked, "Why become a slave to what you do not need? Are you sure you know what freedom really is?" There's a moment, maybe in every man's life, when he wonders if the comfort he sought has become a prison. You look around at the world, the wedding rings, the smiling photos, the promises of forever, and you wonder, is this truly happiness, or just a well-decorated cage? Have you ever watched a man's eyes lose their spark after years of settling down? Have you felt the quiet panic that comes with realizing you traded adventure for predictability, ambition for routine, yourself for someone else's script? Tonight, I invite you to question what most people never do. Is marriage the promise of partnership, or the slow erosion of your freedom, your strength, your very self? Let me tell you what I've seen, and perhaps what you've felt, even if you haven't found words for it yet. Picture this. A man once fierce with dreams, wild with possibility, stands at his own wedding, heart pounding not with joy, but with a quiet, unspoken fear. He smiles, promises, laughs with the crowd, and somewhere deep down, wonders if he is making the greatest mistake of his life. It's not that he doesn't love, it's that he feels the walls closing in, even as everyone cheers him on. Maybe you've noticed it in yourself, or in friends who seem to vanish the moment the ring slid onto their finger. The adventures grew fewer, the laughter more polite, the ambitions smaller, as if the world shrunk to the size of a living room and a dinner table. The man who once spoke of wild plans now worries about upsetting the balance, about keeping the peace, about meeting expectations that seem to multiply with every year. Diogenes, the wildest of all philosophers, who lived in a barrel and laughed at kings, would look at such a scene and shake his head. He once walked through the streets of Athens with a lantern in daylight, searching for an honest man. Imagine him today, shining that same lantern on rows of tired husbands, asking, "Where have you gone? What remains of the fire in your soul?" Marriage, we are told, is the fulfillment of a man's life. But how many men lose themselves in the process, shrinking to fit someone else's vision of the good life? How many bury their longings for the sake of peace, for the sake of doing the right thing? There is a reason why so many ancient thinkers warned against the comfort of conformity. It is comfort that often robs us of our edge, our restlessness, our reason for waking up with purpose. Maybe you know this feeling. Sitting at a family dinner, surrounded by talk of bills and chores, and feeling an emptiness no one else can see. You remember the younger version of yourself, reckless, hungry, unafraid, and you wonder when he left and why you let him go. You convince yourself it's just a phase, that all men grow out of their wildness. But is it growth, or is it surrender? Let's not mistake this for bitterness. There is beauty in love, in sharing life with another. But if that love comes at the cost of your freedom, if it asks you to kill parts of yourself to fit a mold, is it love, or is it slow, quiet defeat? In the next part, we'll let Diogenes himself take the stage. His philosophy, raw and unapologetic, offers a torch for any man lost in the dark. Are you ready to see what he saw? Why does it happen that so many men, once full of life and fire, find themselves quietly fading after marriage? The answer, I've learned, is rarely as simple as wrong person or bad luck. It's rooted in the slow and often invisible process by which freedom is traded for acceptance, and authenticity is exchanged for comfort. At first, every compromise seems harmless, a small sacrifice to keep the peace, a silent agreement to let one dream go for the sake of harmony. You convince yourself it's maturity, that building a life together means learning to bend. But over time, those small sacrifices pile up, and what began as love quietly becomes duty. Diogenes would say that the world trains men to seek approval more than truth. From childhood, you're taught to be agreeable, to make others comfortable, to play your part well. When you enter marriage, this habit can deepen, suddenly. The desire to be loved and to avoid conflict means you edit yourself in tiny, almost invisible ways. You stop speaking your mind so freely. You hide parts of yourself that don't fit the shared script. The wild, restless parts of your nature, the ones that once made you unpredictable and alive, are slowly buried under expectations, routines, and the unspoken pressure to never rock the boat. Most men don't notice this happening. The process is gentle, gradual. You tell yourself you're choosing peace, but peace bought with self-abandonment always costs more than you think. You become an expert at avoiding discomfort, at saying yes when you mean maybe or even no. The world applauds your sacrifices, calls you good, reliable, safe. But what about happy? What about alive? It's easy to blame marriage itself, but the deeper problem is the loss of your own center. You stop living for your own truth and start living for the approval, the routine, the safe, familiar ground that everyone else says you should want. You become a character in someone else's story. Diogenes called this slavery to custom. He warned that nothing kills the spirit faster than surrendering your own judgment and desire for the sake of fitting in. That's why so many men lose their spark in marriage. Not because love is wrong, but because, somewhere along the way, they forget how to stay true to themselves. They give up the edge that made them who they are, and, in doing so, lose both themselves and the respect of those around them. The antidote, as Diogenes saw it, is not rebellion for its own sake, but ruthless honesty. It is the courage to stay awake to your own needs, to refuse comfort that costs you your integrity. Your subscription and comment aren't just numbers. They're signals that decide what video comes next. Share your thoughts or ideas in the comments. They often become the foundation for news stories. Interestingly, over 90% of viewers watch my videos without subscribing. That's okay. It means the content pulls you in. But subscribing helps you stay updated with the next parts. Hit subscribe, and let's create the next video together. And to risk being misunderstood for the sake of remaining true. Only then can partnership be built on freedom, not fear. In the next part, we'll look at how Diogenes' radical ideas can offer real tools to keep your spirit alive, no matter your circumstances. Diogenes, more than any other philosopher, showed by his life that true freedom starts within. He refused the comforts and conventions of his society not because he hated people, but because he believed that most people trade away their spirit for things that cannot satisfy the soul. But what does this mean for you? A man who wants connection, love, maybe even marriage, but who fears the slow suffocation of his own dreams. The answer begins with honesty. Diogenes taught that you must first become clear about what you truly need, not what others say you should want. He lived in radical simplicity, with nothing he could not carry himself, because he refused to be owned by possessions, approval, or empty status. His life was his own, every day, every choice, every word. What does this look like for a modern man? First, it means knowing where your boundaries are and daring to speak them aloud. Don't agree to things that go against your nature just to avoid conflict. Every time you silence your true thoughts, you make it easier to do so next time, and your spirit shrinks a little more. It's better to risk a difficult conversation than to live in silent resentment. Second, Diogenes believed in questioning everything. Why do I want this? Who told me this is necessary? What would I choose if no one could judge me? Practice this in small ways. Question routines that drain you, traditions that don't fit, social obligations that make you feel less alive. If you're in a relationship, talk openly about what matters most to you, and listen with the same honesty to your partner. Third, embrace discomfort. Diogenes found strength by exposing himself to the elements, sleeping outdoors, and living with less. You don't have to be extreme, but you can refuse the trap of comfort at any cost. Take risks. Try new things. Allow yourself moments of solitude, silence, and challenge. Don't be afraid to walk your own path, even if it's unpopular or misunderstood. Fourth, value your own company. Diogenes was never lonely, even alone. He cultivated a friendship with himself that was stronger than any outside approval. Practice time alone, enjoy your own hobbies, and develop the ability to stand on your own 2 feet, emotionally, financially, spiritually. Finally, be playful with the rules of life. Diogenes used humor and wit to cut through hypocrisy. Don't take yourself too seriously. Be willing to laugh at your own mistakes, to call out nonsense, even your own, and to embrace the absurdities of love and partnership. By living with this kind of honesty and courage, you keep your spirit alive, no matter your circumstances. Marriage, then, can become a partnership of equals, not a prison, but a place where 2 free people meet, challenge, and grow together. Next, we'll explore how society distorts the meaning of marriage for men, and what you can do to see through the illusion. From childhood, society sells you a fairy tale. Marriage is your reward for being a good man. It's the sign you've succeeded, grown up, joined the ranks of the respected. The images are everywhere, from family gatherings to movies and social media. Smiling couples, perfect homes, a promise of peace and belonging. If you're single too long, people ask what's wrong. If you have doubts about marriage, they warn you'll be lonely, unloved, or incomplete. But Diogenes, the philosopher who valued truth above comfort, would ask, who profits from this story? And what do you lose by believing it without question? The truth is, society often has little interest in your personal happiness or authenticity. It wants order, predictability, and the appearance of success. Marriage, for many, becomes another badge, a signal that you're normal, that you belong, that you fit into the expected pattern. This illusion runs deep. Many men, driven by fear of loneliness or a need for approval, rush into marriages that don't fit their true nature. They silence their doubts, hide their desires, and perform the rituals because it feels safer than standing apart. When problems arise, loss of freedom, emotional disconnect, loss of purpose, you're told to work harder, give more, try to change yourself until you fit the mold. Have you noticed how rarely anyone asks men if they're truly happy in marriage? Or if they feel respected, seen, alive? More often, the focus is on duty. Make it work. Sacrifice for your family. Don't complain. But Diogenes would say, a life lived only for appearances is not a life at all. So how do you see through the illusion? First, question the story. Who does it serve? Does it leave room for your individuality, your growth, your needs? Or does it demand you shrink to fit a role? Second, notice the pressure to conform. Are your decisions about love and partnership coming from your own deepest truth, or from fear of being judged, excluded, or left behind? Third, ask yourself honestly, what am I giving up for the sake of belonging? Real connection cannot be built on self-abandonment. Fourth, look for role models who live differently. Men who find fulfillment on their own terms, with or without marriage. Notice how they honor their boundaries, pursue their passions, and remain open, not resigned. And finally, remember Diogenes' spirit of rebellion. You owe it to yourself to live in truth, not illusion. The world may not always welcome your questions, but your spirit will. Freedom starts the moment you stop apologizing for your own happiness. In the next part, we'll uncover the deeper meaning behind the illusion and what it really means to reclaim your power as a man. There's a reason why the illusion of the perfect marriage is so powerful. It speaks to something deep within every man. The longing for belonging, the fear of being left behind, the hope that one final decision could bring lasting peace. But here's the deeper truth Diogenes would want you to see. When you build your life on illusions, you are never free. You are always negotiating your worth, forever seeking approval, always one step away from losing yourself. Marriage, as it's sold to men, often demands that you become a provider first, a partner second, and only last, if at all, your true self. You start measuring your days by what you give up, not what you gain. The roles may change, but the lesson is the same. Fit in, don't make waves, be reliable, be safe. But is safety worth the cost if the price is your purpose, your authenticity, your wildness? Diogenes taught that freedom isn't the absence of commitment, but the presence of truth. He rejected the chains of custom because he saw how easily men could lose themselves by seeking approval. He knew that comfort is seductive, but often leads to sleepwalking through life. To reclaim your power, you must wake up, question your motives, your habits, your own story. Ask yourself, not just once, but every day, is this really my path, or am I living out someone else's expectation? Freedom begins in small moments. It's in the decision to say what you really think, to admit your fears, to refuse a compromise that makes you less. It's the choice to honor your own needs, even if they're unpopular. It's in the courage to risk loneliness rather than betray yourself. Power is not given to you by a role, a title, or even a partner. It comes from living in radical honesty, the kind that Diogenes lived every day, even when people called him mad. But this awakening isn't about rejecting love, partnership, or even marriage itself. It's about refusing to disappear inside them. It's about demanding that the person you become is the person you choose, not the product of pressure, routine, or fear. So let me ask you directly, and I want you to sit with this question tonight, as honestly as you ever have. If you stripped away every expectation, every rule, every fear of judgment, who would you be, and what would you choose? This is your hook, your wake-up call, your invitation to stop living on autopilot. Are you ready to reclaim your story, your power, your freedom, or are you still waiting for someone else's permission? In the next part, we'll look at how to recognize the turning point, that moment of awakening when a man finally chooses himself, and how you can make that leap in your own life. The turning point rarely arrives with a crash of thunder or some grand act of rebellion. Instead, it begins as a whisper, a subtle discomfort, a growing restlessness, an uneasy sense that your life is happening without your full consent. You catch yourself going through the motions, waking, working, coming home, playing your part, always polite, always dependable, always a little less alive. Maybe you look in the mirror one morning and realize you no longer recognize the man staring back. For some, the awakening starts with a single, raw moment of honesty. Maybe it's a quiet evening after another pointless argument, when you finally admit, I am not happy. Maybe it's the sting of envy when you see someone living boldly, or the ache of regret when you remember the dreams you left behind. Or perhaps it's a simple act of courage, saying no for the first time, letting yourself want what you want, even if it isn't what's expected. Diogenes would say this is your soul's revolt against conformity. The discomfort you feel is not failure. It is the first sign of life returning to your spirit. The pain of honesty, though sharp, is far healthier than the numbness of routine. It's a sign you are still capable of change. How do you make that leap? You start small. You begin by listening to the voice inside that you've been silencing for years. You honor your frustration, your desires, your disappointments. You stop explaining them away. You give yourself permission to speak and act with truth, even if your voice shakes, even if no one understands at first. You create boundaries, even simple ones. Time for your own passions, space to reflect, the right to disagree. Each boundary is a line you draw between who you are and who you are expected to be. Each honest act becomes a stone in the foundation of your new freedom. And as you do this, you may find some relationships grow stronger, deeper, more real. Others may resist or fall away. But through it all, you discover something Diogenes valued above all else: the ability to walk through life unchained, answerable to no one but your own soul. That, brother, is the moment a man chooses himself, not out of selfishness, but out of a fierce loyalty to his own life. The journey is never easy, but every step in truth brings you back to yourself. In the next part, we'll see how this awakening changes everything, from your relationships, to your sense of self, to your vision for the future. When a man finally chooses himself, the world around him inevitably shifts. At first, the change feels disorienting, even frightening. Relationships that once seemed stable may be tested. Some people will challenge the new you, pushing back against your boundaries, testing your resolve. But beneath that friction is the seed of something rare, a connection built on honesty, not on silent resentment or silent compromise. You may notice that you start speaking more simply, but with greater conviction. There's less need for endless explanation or defense. You say yes when you mean it, no when you need to, and your words begin to carry weight. Some friends or family may not understand, and some relationships may grow distant, but those that remain become deeper, more genuine. The people who truly care about you are drawn not to your compliance, but to your authenticity. Internally, the shift is even more profound. You reclaim your sense of self. No longer living according to someone else's plan, you rediscover forgotten dreams, old hobbies, or ambitions you buried for the sake of peace. Even your body feels different, less tension in your chest, more energy in your mornings, a lightness that comes from no longer pretending. Diogenes understood this. It is not that I am alone, but that I am free among the sleeping. To live wide awake, to choose your path, is to join the small, courageous minority who value truth above approval. Perhaps the most surprising transformation is how you see the future. Where once the years ahead felt like an endless corridor of obligations, suddenly they appear as an open field, waiting to be shaped by your own hand. You begin to imagine possibilities you'd stopped allowing yourself to consider. Travel, creativity, new work, deeper friendships, perhaps even love, but on your own terms, not as an escape or a mask, but as a choice. The world feels less threatening, less like a test you must pass, and more like an invitation. You realize that you don't have to reject connection, or even marriage, to live in truth. You simply refuse to give up yourself in the process. You can offer loyalty, love, and partnership, but not at the cost of your soul. That's the lesson Diogenes gives. Seek nothing from the world that costs you your essence. With this awakening, you stop fearing loneliness. Alone time becomes a place of strength, not a sentence. Your approval, your friendship, your trust, all are earned, not given away out of habit or fear. This new vision isn't just for you. Every man who chooses himself gives permission to others, sons, brothers, friends, to do the same. And that, perhaps, is how real change begins, not in defiance, but in quietly, relentlessly living your own truth. In the next part, we'll turn this philosophy into practical life hacks. How to recognize red flags, set boundaries, and build relationships that support your freedom instead of draining it. Let's turn philosophy into action. If you want to keep your spirit alive in a world that often rewards conformity, here's how to use Diogenes' ancient wisdom every day, especially when it comes to relationships and marriage. First, become a master of self-observation. Notice how you feel before, during, and after time spent with your partner. Do you leave conversations energized or drained? Do you feel more yourself, or do you sense you're shrinking, editing, pretending? If your energy consistently drops, that's a red flag. Diogenes kept his life simple, so he could always tell when something felt wrong. Simplify your emotional life enough to notice when your boundaries are crossed. Second, set boundaries early and clearly. Don't wait for a crisis. Speak honestly about what you need and what you cannot accept. You have a right to your own time, dreams, and space. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors you open and close with intention. Respecting your own boundaries teaches others how to treat you. Third, pay attention to the small warning signs. If your opinions are dismissed, if your feelings are mocked, if your efforts are never enough, these are not things that just happen in all relationships. They are clues. Don't explain them away. Diogenes would not stay where he was disrespected, and neither should you. Fourth, practice radical honesty with yourself first. Admit when you are unhappy. Own your doubts, your needs, your fears. Pretending only delays the pain. When you live in truth, you attract people who value truth as well. Fifth, remember that love is a gift, not a contract. Don't barter away your values or your freedom for affection or social approval. The healthiest relationships are those where both people grow stronger, freer, and more themselves together. Finally, value your solitude. Take time alone to check in with yourself. Reconnect with your interests, your body, your friends. Diogenes was never afraid to be alone because he trusted his own company above all. Let your alone time be a place of renewal, not a place you fear or avoid. By putting these habits into practice, you create relationships built on respect, not submission. You move through life awake, unashamed, and able to love without losing yourself. In the final part, we'll gather the main lessons, offer encouragement for your journey, and close with a call to live bravely, as Diogenes would want. Thank you for walking this path with me. If you made it to the end, you've already shown more courage and curiosity than most. Diogenes would have called you a rare soul, one willing to question, to challenge, to seek freedom even when it means standing apart. Let me remind you, the power to shape your life has always been yours. You don't owe anyone your spirit, your dreams, or your peace of mind. Whether you choose marriage or solitude, partnership or independence, do it as yourself, not as a shadow of someone else's expectations. Take these lessons as seeds. Some may take root today, others will grow with time. Be patient with yourself. Stay honest, stay awake, and remember, life is too short to sleepwalk through it. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you learn from this video? Did something resonate, challenge you, or open your eyes to a new truth? Share your thoughts below. Your story might be the one that helps someone else wake up. Thank you for your presence, your time, and your courage. Subscribe if you value honest conversations and want more philosophical journeys. Until next time, stay free and never stop seeking your own truth.